Great, thank you. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Heather. Thank you guys for having me, and audience for not running away screaming when you heard an academic was going to present. All right, so people in the back, you can hear me, I guess, pretty well with at this volume. All right, we'll start with that. I'm a sociologist by training. I work at the Oxford Internet Institute. I'm really interested in how individuals relate to other people and really the idea of identity online. How do we express ourselves in online spaces? Facebook is a great space for this, for understanding how this works and how it plays out. People change their pages when their mom joined. They get a second page. It's my mom's birthday today, by the way, so hi, Mom. Some people do change when they're parents, or when spouses sort of look at certain pages, or bosses and so forth. It's an idea we call collapsed context. And the idea is that all these different spaces that we have all come into the one single feed. Now, how do we handle this? Well, normally, I mean, we have a single unified Facebook page. It's almost undifferentiated. Here's a variety of photos. These right here are from a project I did with the BBC, looking at people's senses of attractiveness. But it is sort of undifferentiated. It's just a mass of people. So how do we organize these, and how does Facebook organize these for us? Some would say it organizes it for us in rather nefarious ways. Eli Pariser's The Filter Bubble, for example, talks about how we sort of passively use the EdgeRank algorithm in ways we don't even realize to give us sort of the happy talk. But I mean, the real way that we organize these things is through lists, linear lists. My wall, my friends, my chat, the smart list, the timeline. Facebook has a very linear approach to organizing our lives. We put it all in a single list. We can put things in sublists. But we don't necessarily organize our world in terms of single unidimensional lists. Actually, it seems like there's a lot of ways where we can think about things in a second dimension. We can put them and project them onto a plane and consider them as a map. So here's XKCD's sort of map of cyberspace. And what's nice about it is not just a single rank histogram number of here's the number of people that go onto Facebook, or here's the number that go onto QQ, but it's kind of giving a sense of which is grouped with what and how that relates in perspective to other things. Well, certainly we can map Facebook as well, can't we? Facebook themselves have done some rather wonderful maps. This is where I start coming into paying attention. This is not just a map of the world geographically, but it's a map of the social structure of Facebook. What they did is they sampled 10,000 friends and all the links between them, plotted those on a geographical map. You sort of get a sense that in Russia, Facebook's not so popular as in Contact or Classmates. Brazil, Orchid is still dominant. China's pretty much off the map. You know, RenRen, QQ are there. But overall, Facebook is this broad, encompassing network of 6 degrees of separation and so forth. Turns out it's actually 4 degrees of separation. We've just found this out last month. But what about a map for me? What about my map? Well, here's an example of a map of me. These are the things that we do with NodeXL. This is a social network diagram. What it does is download the friendship relations. These are available through the Graph API. We can get them in querying in a number of different ways, and I've spent the last several years figuring out the optimal queries for this in order to download and render these things and give them a sense of coherence. This one here is done by Mark Smith. He's the developer of a program, NodeXL, which I'm going to be talking about. Here's another one. This is my network, and these clusterings right here are done based on who is friends with who, and they cluster them together. And it turns out these clusters are remarkably coherent. I don't need to know that somebody goes to Oxford to know that he's part of the Oxford group because he's linked to everybody else from Oxford. It's painfully evident up there on the slide. Same goes for my family, people from undergraduate, from high school, you name it. These clusters naturally emerge on the site. We're not making use of them, but they're there. So how can we make use of them? Well, what I've been doing as part of my research for the past several years is working with the NodeXL team. They are a team from the Social Media Research Foundation, a charitable trust in California, I believe. 501(c), like Wikipedia. It's down, by the way. Sorry to disappoint. I really have no idea what a car is anymore. I tried looking it up today. It's been a disaster. But these things, but the Node Excel team has been putting together a plugin for Excel. Why Excel? Well, it originally started out of Microsoft Research. And it turns out that while C# is being deprecated, it was actually a really great platform for extending Excel and putting network diagrams in there. So Node Excel is a piece of software. It's meant to be an end-to-end solution for social network analysis. We have an import button, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We have ways to talk about graph properties, to label graphs, to put attributes in there, and overall give a sense of visualizations that are meaningful, adding things like thumbnails, curved edges, clustering, and so forth. And then you can emerge pictures like this from Facebook. So more directly, I've been working with the Facebook importer called the Social Net Importer. And what we do with that is we use the Graph API, mainly through FQL, to download an individual's personal social network that we can then use as sort of friends of friends links and plot them and make some sense out of them. And right here we can see a friendship graph. The edges don't show up so much on the projector as they do on the screen in front of me. But this green group right here tend to be primarily all tied to each other. The darker green group in the corner also clustered together, and so forth and so forth. We can see some dense links between certain people and some sparse links between others. Interestingly, you can do this not only for friends of friends. The friends of friends graphs are available pretty much bog standard, but what we've been exploring now is how to create messages out of conversations. So if we both comment on the same thing in a fan page, that gives a link between the two of us. If we comment a lot, that gives a strong link between the two of us. So who is commenting together? What does your audience look like? Is your audience completely fragmented, or is it actually clustered? And here's a fascinating fan page right here that shows that there's actually 4 distinct clusters of individuals that are all primarily commenting on separate aspects of this fan page. And this one guy who's highlighted in red is doing a great job of linking together all of these different people. He's commenting across the different pages, but most people are commenting in their own different silos. There's 4 audiences here. Is this fan page speaking to all these 4 audiences? I'm not really sure, but you know, this is somewhere where we can find out and actually peel back, look at that as a map, and sort of look at the terrain rather than simply looking at a list of, say, impact or the frequency of activity. So in order to do this yourself, if you have a Windows computer, or if you have Mac and, or Linux and sort of a virtual machine, you kind of need Windows, you can download Node Excel through codeplex.com. It's open sourced, so you can modify it in all sorts of ways. One of my graduate students is modifying it in really great ways at the moment. And more specifically for Facebook is a secondary program called the Social Net Importer. Now, the Social Net Importer is a spin-off of the Node Excel program that is dedicated to Facebook. It allows for the download of personal networks on Facebook, as well as fan page networks. The fan page network stuff is not quite as fully baked at the moment, but you can download both co-commenters and co-likers. So you can build a network of who likes the same things. Do you have different sets of people who are liking a lot of artifacts on your page? Are they liking a lot of the same kind of concerts, or are they liking a lot of the same movies? Do you have a single cohesive audience that are all liking the same stuff, or a fragmented audience that are liking different things? Should you fork that page, or download for 2 pages, merge them together, and see if you actually have a single audience across your 2 pages, merge those 2 pages together, rather than have 2 separate pages. So here's some of the things that we find really interesting in this network. Well, first of all, if it's a personal network, who has the most friends in common? Who has the most friends in common with me? That's a really important metric for all sorts of things. We found this out in numerous academic studies. People that have the most friends in common tend to be the closest to an individual. They use a lot of positive words for that individual. If they're going to like something, the other person's going to like something. It's sort of a birds of a feather flock together. So, you know, you can query this, but beyond friends in common, we can have more interesting network metrics, like who's the person that links together my network? Who is that one person? If I look at one of these visualizations and I see that one person that links everybody, it's probably your husband or wife. It's probably the person that knows all of the people that you do across groups. You can identify that person just through the network. You can look at different clusters. Do people actually have a lot of different clusters in their network? There's a lot of academic work that I've been doing with this on how people perceive these different groups. Do they have a work group? Have they completely segmented their family so they're not on Facebook or not tied to everybody else? This is sort of going beyond the smart list feature right now, which looks at things like attributes, people who label themselves from a certain area, towards who are those ones that bridge the clusters and what are the clusters that they bridge. We can look at things like where are people now. We can download, to the extent that people make this information available, their current location or their hometown location, and then cluster by that. Are the people from London all linked together in my network, or all the people from America all linked together in my network, and so forth? And so here's some of the advantages of this new program. I've been doing this for a couple years. I got a really crappy app out there called NameGenWeb. It's terrible, it's FBML, it's REST API, it's just hideous. It also, what it does is use PHP, it writes to a server, you download your network from the server. This new one is great, it's local, it installs a little, or it launches a little tiny server inside of Excel and interacts directly with Facebook. It uses FQL multi-query, and the reason is because these queries can get really large. You're looking at, if someone has 500 friends, you can have upwards of 10,000, 20,000, I can't remember the math, it's exponential, a lot of friendship links. And Facebook will only return 5,000 at a time. So we've been able to weave all this together. It's robust. We take into account things like whether people are memorialized. They actually get returned from Facebook in friendships in different ways. Things like if you're on limited profile, it takes that into account. And it pretty much downloads every single piece of information about an individual's friend that Facebook will allow you to take within their API. So you can get friends, movies, likes, fan pages, and so forth. And of course, it's completely open sourced. Now, it's open sourced using MPL, the Microsoft public license, for the moment, but we've recently been spun out of Microsoft, and so we might be changing licenses. We're not sure yet. So this has been a bit of a challenge for us. A lot of people use social data or they say they use social data on the web, but they really mean sort of a group of what your friends like. But for us, the challenge is actually learning social as a structure, as a group of individuals, this terrain, this map, and not just a list. And in order to do that, you have to pull in these queries, thousands of them. It gets very expensive very quickly. And so we've had to overcome that. One of the things that we didn't realize at the time is Facebook have some things buried in their API. Like, for example, limited profile friends won't show up. We didn't realize that. And another thing that we're looking at right now is how to best express the notion of a network on a fan page, where a fan page is not necessarily a network if we both comment on the same thing, or to what extent can we interpret that? So finally, I just want to give some special thanks to Mark Smith, the NodeXL PI, Arbor Seni, who's been the dev lead on the Social Net Importer, and Tony Capone, who's the dev lead on NodeXL. If you want more info on how to interpret this stuff, then I'm running a half-day course on this with the local social group. You can use the discount code for this one. The discount code is Bernie, with the small I, just like here. I'm running an academic course at the UK Social Networks Association, and a policymaker course somehow long distant off in the future. And any other questions, just email me. So thank you very much. Oh, well, if we have time, I mean, we got like...
Can we do a couple of quick questions if anybody has questions for Bernie? Any questions out there?
Sold.
Okay.
Oh, a couple. I don't know, self-moderate, there we go.
All right, just a hopeful question. Are there any plans to move it out of Excel?
There are plans to move it out of Excel. I mean, first of all, the code itself is open source so that people can be doing this on the web. I've got a grant to spruce up NameGenWeb so that it's a HTML5 compliant, and we'll be re-rendering these things on the back end on a server and shipping you out network diagrams pre-done. But beyond that, I'm trying to inspire people to think about how they can embed social in their own applications. My zen of this is to have an online version, and that's something that we're looking at as long-term plans. In 2 years, expect something in that regard that will actually be production ready. Yes, in the back.
One big question for me is, I saw some of the detail you put around social graph. One of the problems is, with 800 million people on Facebook increasing, how do you scale it up to not just the graph, but also, you know, we talk about verbs and actions that are coming up. How do you scale it to be able to have all of those things? The depth and the breadth. How do you scale it?
Well, I guess the simple answer is you don't. The simple answer is you don't. You can look up Pete Warden. Pete Warden's a guy who tried to download the entire social graph for Facebook, and he did some really neat analysis on this and looks at the states and sort of clustered in these interesting areas. It looked like Mormons and then the New England. But then he got taken to court by Facebook. You're not supposed to download and store the entire social graph. So even if it expands, what we're still trying to do is look for how the graph around any given person is more intelligible. Scaling and merging those together is a privacy no-no in Facebook's eyes. They will shut you down. You can take this data, but if you keep it, it'll be trouble. And if you try to release it, it'll be bigger trouble. So we're using this as an interpretive tool for any given individual, or a way to turbocharge certain metrics for any given user for user experience. But trying to get that metric, it's best to just go to Facebook themselves, ask them about it, and if they have a good reason to give it to you, they will give it to you, just like they did to a variety of researchers that they've been working with to do whole graph analytics, to learn out things like its 4 degrees of separation.
Well, just one more quick question.
I thought the presentation was very interesting, thank you. I just wondered if you could give some examples of where perhaps there's been a commercial application of the type of work you've been doing.
The first one that I have a dream for an application, and I'm an academic, so I'm not very good at like keeping industry secrets. So my dream application is to be able to automatically classify my friends, to use this as an actionable thing where it says, this looks like a group. Is it a group? Yes, it's a group. How about these people, the ones that are adjacent to it? Do they belong in the group? And I drag in and out based on it. And now all of a sudden I'm looking at Facebook in family mode, or I'm looking at it in coworker mode. In coworker mode, the problem that we have right now with smart lists is that without seeing the entire picture, without seeing the picture that you are sort of applying this to, you don't know who is in and who is out. Whereas making use of networks actually is a good way to determine who should be in and who should be out. TouchGraph did a poor job of this as sort of a proof of concept about 3 years ago, but they never followed up on it. The other commercial applications for this very obviously are in re-ranking. Re-ranking, one would be a commercial application in finding out friends of 2 people. You have 2 people on this app, and then you can find out who are their friends in common. One vision for this for me is if I go to a concert, I don't necessarily want to know who of my friends is going to that concert. I already know. But what I would like to know is who of my friends' friends that I'm not already friends with are going to the concert, a sort of friendly stranger. And using network metrics, you can actually spider out and get to the friendly stranger stage, where you can see, oh, we have a friend in common, and now let's meet. So.
Great, thank you very much, Bernie. Lots of useful information there. Let's give another big round of applause.
Thank you. Oh, and we have a book as well. So.